Welcome back, everybody. Beautiful to be with you. Yes, I hope you had a wonderful day integrating the energies of the retreat. Yeah, sometimes integration can be just quite beautiful and gentle, and other times it can be, a little bit difficult and messy. Yeah. Oh, and before I forget, uh, the next retreat, if you're excited, will be up at the Kripalu Institute in Massachusetts, July 14th through the 19th. There's details on my website about that. And so when I was studying with my teacher, I would just go from one retreat to the next and just not stop. But I thought I might just take a moment and speak about retreat. And sometimes things can get quite serious and intense on retreats. And to work with this, I was reminded today of this mudra that my teacher David provided us, his students, and I'd like all of us just to do it and to work with it and just see if you can feel the power and the effect of it. And so I'm just going to invite everyone just to follow along with these instructions. And anytime you receive a mudra, that comes with a transmission. It's very important to do it exactly how the teacher describes it. And so I'm going to invite everyone just to raise your arm up, your right arm, and pull it directly across. So keep it horizontal with the plane of the earth. And then you take your hand like this, almost like you're cocking a gun. And so you bring it right here underneath your nose. And as you breathe in, it's important to bring your lips together, to really stick them out like this. And then if you follow me as we breathe in, I'm sorry. It was really hard for me to keep a straight face. But we can all try again. We can all try just one more time, to make sure we got the full effect. The arm out to the side, put the finger into a pistol cock position, sticking the lips out, and then you go. We spiritual people can be lunatics sometimes, and it's good to laugh. It's good to smile. It's good to joke a little bit. But I'm sorry. I was at the memorial for my teacher today, and one of the students brought up this teaching. My teacher used to have us do this all the time, and he would put on such a serious face, and with new people, it was always like the biggest joke. And so, when we're on retreat, and especially like when we're ending retreat, all this pressure and all this light has built up. It's good to have a big laugh, to go out and blow off some steam, to sing, to dance, to shake the body and just be a little bit wild, because having a human body on the spiritual path, it's just a crazy thing, because all this light is coming into us, all this radiance. And for many of us, like, we're letting go. There's tears, there might be old trauma that's coming up and releasing. And, after any retreat that I was on, like, afterwards, I always just wanted to go and run, turn up the music and just be wild just for a little bit, just to kind of just empty some of this energy out. Just empty it out. And it's really good to move the body. And if you could spend some time in nature in the next couple of days, of course, just like long, quiet walks are also an excellent way to integrate the energies of the retreat, and spending some more time in silence and just being with yourself. For some people, journaling is really helpful. For some of us, it's just lying down on the earth and having a hand on your heart and a hand on your belly. Some of the worst ways to integrate a retreat are to immediately like rush away to the airport and be in a stressful situation, or have to rush anywhere. Processing with your boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, husband, ex-boyfriend, girlfriend. It's like just, it's good just to like not getting involved in any of that, and just continue to be silent and be with yourself, and allow these energies to continue to work on you. And what we find is that if we honor what's here, like really honoring what's here, then these energies and these openings, these pathways that we began to establish on retreat, they can become much, much more permanent. Much more permanent. And so sometimes, like on retreat, there'll be just different levels of resistance that come up. And, if you have a blissful retreat, it's like, yes, beautiful. Let's just keep opening to that bliss and that spaciousness and freedom. If you had a lot of emotional energy come up, and we want to continue to let it unravel, and it might unravel for the next couple of days and sometimes next couple of weeks. I've been on retreats before where things unraveled for like the next season. It's just like, oh boy, just something came forward and it was released. Of course, with Kundalini people, like sometimes the thing is unraveling for the next 5 years before it fully integrates. But it's so utterly important to honor what's here. And I've told this story before, but I was on a retreat in Northern California at this old convent, and I think it was with John Burney, and he was a friend of Adya. And this lady, she actually lived in the neighborhood of like the retreat center. And I can't remember what she said. She said something like, "This is my 142nd retreat here at this retreat center." But the thing about this lady that we were all shocked about was, it was really clear that she would just go and get high on the teachings, but she wasn't integrating any of it. She wasn't owning it, because, she was just like this emotional mess and kind of all over the place, and gossiping and being wild throughout the retreat. And sometimes, there's people like that. You might meet them on the spiritual path that just come to get high. And a retreat could be, a little bit like a spiritual drug trip. But if you take the time and really honor what's here, and you actually, like Jose was speaking about today, you gain an insight. And then you follow that insight deep into the body. And you do the healing work, the clearing work, and you step more fully into this truth. And you honor the truth. And just, to sound like a psychologist for a moment, you follow up that truth with actual lived behavioral change, then something big will shift in you. Something big will shift in you. when I was much younger, I used to go see Adia a bunch, and he had this gift of just like waking people up with a couple questions. And I had that experience with him. It's quite profound. But after he asked me the questions, and I opened up to the truth that he was pointing to, his teaching was good. Stay there. Stay there, like honor this. And many years later, I was, speaking with him, and he actually said he quit doing it. He quit, like popping people open because they didn't honor it. And people, he said, just kept coming back, like he was some kind of one-trick pony. And he found it very frustrating that he had this immense ability, but people saw it. Well, I'll say this: they didn't have the maturity, and they didn't actually change anything in their life, and so that in a sense forced him to start teaching in a way that was more like slow and progressive instead of like just direct and explosive. And so it's so important that if we ever do have, or let's say that differently, when we do have big, powerful, profound experiences, to take the time to stop and honor it. And so on this retreat, we've been opening and establishing this relationship with the divine. And so I encourage you to continue to open, to pray, to connect with the divine, and just to make it crystal clear. Like, well, how do we do that? For most of us, and we can play along right now, if we just bring a gentle attention to our crown chakra, and just to imagine your crown almost being like a lid. And if you just open that lid, or like a hatch or a doorway, and you just begin to open that, the subtle sense of awareness, that intention of opening it, like right away, you might begin to feel this divine radiance, like a dancing light. And so then the next step is to gently welcome that energy just down into the body, and just following it chakra by chakra. And so again, we'll just continue by welcoming this light down into the space of the mind. And of course, surrendering any thoughts, allowing the mind to be silent, and just welcoming this descent of grace as it flows. And opening the throat chakra, and again, just envisioning, almost like drawing down the light. And so if you're new to this, almost will feel like almost like you're drawing it down. If you've done this often, it's just a sense of opening, and you'll see the light almost like pouring down, cascading down through the throat chakra. As though we're opening the heart and welcoming this flow of light, of grace down into the heart. And really taking some time to allow this grace to really flood the heart. And we want to make sure that the heart is saturated with this lovely heavenly grace. And for many of us, our human heart, our emotional heart gets so used and abused. And so therefore, let us welcome like a full saturation of the heart. And for some folks, you might work with just seeing each chakra center almost like a bowl, like one of these Tibetan singing bowls, almost like the light is coming down, like in a liquid form, fountaining down, and let's say filling up the third eye and then overflowing, filling up the bowl, the throat chakra overflowing, and seeing the bowl and the heart just being like a giant bowl and just being filled with light, filled with light. And if any of you have, emotional pain in the heart, you might notice just little tears, sometimes a lot of tears come forward. It's just like the sadness or the hurt is being held in the light, being held in the light. So just seeing the fullness of your emotional nature, any old pain or trauma, heartache, despair, is absolutely being loved, loved, and supported. And as this light flows more and more fully into the space of the heart, you may notice it's like a transmutation of this vital center. As so many of us think of the heart, refer to the heart as like this emotional center. But more and more as this grace begins to pour down into this thing that often we refer to as an emotional center, you see that there's this much deeper dimension to the heart that comes online. Like this non-dual, timeless, eternal nature of the heart. It's actually much stronger and profound than even any sense of emotional depth. Begin to see your heart. It's like a massive mountain of love. It's deep and wide, timeless and eternal. It has this depth of strength. And so as this grace continues to flow down to the heart, it's like clearing off the emotional heart, clearing away the pain, emotional pain, opening one into this profound depth. Profound depth. And so let us spend some time just opening here more fully. inhabiting this depth. And for some of you who are new to this path, this is good to know. It's like, oh, there's this deeper aspect of my heart. My heart, it's not just an old ball of pain. My heart is deep and wide. It's radiant and free. And as you notice, you might find this grace again now really filling up the whole chest, the whole torso, and overflowing. Pouring into the solar plexus chakra, which again can be a point of just a great contraction. If we have any issues around power or our place in the world, or sharing our gift, or just fighting with life. And so again, on the surface, you might see kind of like this vital, emotional kind of energy. But as this light begins to come in more fully, clearing away the emotion, kind of upgrading this center, awakening this center to its truth. If there's any gripping here, we want to release this or just allow this light to work on that gripping, kind of softening it, tenderizing it, opening it. And again, just seeing this bowl and the solar plexus really filling up with light, awakening, almost like this energy of like a profound nobility, truth, strength, and power. In this center, if we really open to it, we begin to understand the truth of what the Buddha called right action. Like the heart is open, the mind is clear. And so that right action can flow through our body, flow through our speech, flow through our outward expression. The center really helps connect us to our spiritual gifts, and our truth, and our divine, our unique divine expression. So beautiful. Continue to open here, and by now feeling so much light in the body, and this light is overflowing. Flowing down into the hara. And again, some of you might be gripping in the hara or have fear here. And if that's you, it's just letting this light work on that fear. Soften the fear, soothe this fear. As we have great, great fear in the hara. In any of the centers, if there's anything emotional or stuck, just trust the energy is just working on it. Healing it, holding it, transmuting it. And so breathing deeply and fully into the hara. And sometimes there can be a real profound, like unconscious gripping in the hara that goes It's right through the central channel, the nervous system. Let's all take a deep, full exhale. Like just really releasing, even making a little bit of noise or moaning or sighing. Opening, letting go of the pelvis, the pelvic floor. Just letting this cup, this bowl of the heart just overflow with light. Beginning to wake up. This real non-dual nature that you are life. That you are the totality. You are this hugeness of being. Of course, this energy in the heart is overflowing into the root. The root is very similar to the heart. So deep, full exhale. Opening, opening, opening to this primordial essence. Vibrant, radiant light. As you open more fully into the root, softening and trusting. And again, for some of you, like these lower centers might take some more time if there's any deep physical trauma here or heavy toxic relationships that you might need some time for the light just to burn it up or to work with it or to embrace it. That's okay, but we're continuing to open, receiving this recognition. You are this immensity of light. That you are life itself. That you are heaven. And you are the earth. So just noticing what you feel throughout the central channel. This hugeness of radiance is your true nature. So breathing, feeling, softening. And gently setting the intention to know yourself as this light, this love, the silence and radiance. And for some of you in the Sangha, it can be helpful just to kind of set the intention to unhook more and more from your human personality or from the old trauma wound or that old story of yourself, just saying, okay, like maybe now's the time. Like now's the time. Today is today, June 2nd, 2024. Maybe now is the time. Whatever day it is, now is the time to choose to step into the fullness of your nature. Maybe even envisioning like a giant axe, a giant sword, just falling down, cutting you off from your past, letting the past fall away, letting yourself be awake in the here and now. Nothing in the past you need. Nothing in the past you need. If you have some good memories, sure, we welcome those. But what if we were just this right here, right now? This radiance, this light, this love, baptized in light, and knowing ourselves as this light, as this light. We breathe, we feel, we open. And I encourage each of you spiritual warriors to claim your highest truth. No reason any longer to live by old egoic truths. Let us live by this greater luminosity, this deeper honesty of what we truly are, instead of being what the world conditioned us to be. We choose to be Buddhas, we choose to be goddesses, we choose to live in the highest, now and forevermore. And so, open your eyes if you like. See all the goddesses in the room, all the Buddhas, all the divine beings smiling. And I hope you see yourself in the computer and see your divinity, your radiance, your beauty, your mysterious wonder. And so in the coming days, you'll see that your human mind will probably come forward because it's a creature of habit. And you have the choice to see through that mind, to see through those thoughts, to see through those old behaviors. And maybe to say, well, how about I try something new? How about I try something new? Because sometimes people go to war with their egos, and I'm not a fan of war. I am a fan of choice, though. You'll see little bits of your ego come forward, an old way of being, and sometimes, like when I was with my teacher, he would just point out the way I was gripping onto a tool. I don't think I got a tool here right now, but normally I got a tool. But I could even remember this like one day just being at dinner and like gripping a fork. And I was like, I'm so tense. Like, I don't have to be so tense. I'm just eating dinner. I'm just eating dinner. I don't have to be so tense. I'm just eating dinner. And sometimes like you'll notice yourself seated, maybe at satsang, maybe seated and watching the news, because like the news is one of those great things that just brings up tension, and all of a sudden we're gripping all throughout our spine. And it's like, oh, I don't need to grip when I'm hearing stories about Mr. Trump or Mr. Biden. Like, I don't need to get all worked up right now. And when you step into this new world, you begin to relate to your body and your nervous system in a different way. You might even see like, oh, I don't need to watch the news. I don't even need to watch the news because it just feeds that demon of insecurity within me. It feeds that great fear in my root chakra or my hara within me. I'm going to feed my hara a long, quiet walk after dinner, where I'm seeing the birds floating in the sky and sunset, and feeling the warmth of the earth radiance on my skin and my body, hearing the hum, the aliveness of the crickets and the frogs and all the animals of nature. And so if we want to live this new life, we have to first choose it and then follow it up with some real behavioral change. And again, sometimes like people think like, oh, the spiritual path is so hard and it asks so much of me and I have to surrender so much. When you let go of watching the news and instead you go on a quiet evening walk, that's not surrender. That's a gift. Like, that's a gift. You are receiving something so much greater. When you let go of self-hatred and you choose to love yourself and breathe more deeply, be kind to yourself and look in the mirror and smile, that's not surrender. That's a gift. That's a gift you give yourself. And when we're young on the path, we think, oh, I have to surrender so much. And it's like, no, we're giving ourselves a gift. And sometimes that's a gift of silence. Sometimes, if you have an old friend who calls you and gossips all the time, and you see her calling and you just look at the phone and you're like, maybe not today. Like maybe I don't need to gossip right now. Maybe I don't need to do that right now. And again, instead, you go and do some yoga, or we do this thing at my house. Sometimes we make these little backyard fires and we hang out under the stars. It's a gift. It's a gift. It's a gift. And so sometimes our ego gets really confused and throws up all these stories of resistance, thinking that, oh my gosh, I have to give up so much. And it's like the spiritual path is about gaining a whole new life, a glorious life, a wondrous life. And so anyways, I would encourage you to really just notice in the next couple of days, like when those old pesky thoughts come in, you can look at them and say no, and then choose something different. Choose something greater. Choose to be sweet to yourself, kind to yourself, loving to yourself. And so I encourage you to play with this, just opening to grace and receiving grace. And, like I said on the retreat, I'd speak about prayer, speak about connecting to God. Of course, we meditate a lot. But at some point, like as we begin to just play with this openness, then your life becomes a life of like a living prayer. This lived openness, this lived receptivity. And you'll see that something much more extraordinary than reruns on Netflix will be downloaded into your consciousness. Something much more extraordinary. Much more extraordinary. And so anyways, someone emailed some questions, and also Taylor sent in a correction for me. He told me I was being a little harsh with the work of Byron Katie, and And Taylor's absolutely right. And so I feel like I used to listen to NPR once upon a time, and sometimes they would do these corrections, and uh, so I'll do a correction here that yeah, Taylor's right, and you might hear me, often use like the teachings of someone else as a way of comparing, and again, like I love Byron Katie, and I've benefited greatly from her work. And sometimes when you're a big famous teacher and you write a big famous book and you start printing worksheets on how to do the work, and you do it on a mass, you're working with tens of thousands of students, and sometimes that work can get a little diluted, and Taylor's right. Like when Katie works with individuals, she invites them deeply into the body. And so thank you, Taylor, for the correction, and forgive me if I came off in any way as saying that it's no good. I've done it a bunch and benefited a bunch from it. And then also, like I was speaking about with Jose, I've done it a bunch, and sometimes it just seemed like I was doing mental gymnastics and had to work much, much deeper in the body. So thank you for that, Taylor. Let's see. Lauren sent in a question, and I think I'll just read the question. Lauren writes, first of all, thank you for the beautiful retreat. In the last moments of the last meditation today, I had a big opening and felt light enter my crown and push through some resistance in my belly and flow into the ground. Beautiful. Each time I've had a profound experience like this, I have felt immediately ice cold, like ice water in my veins. And all I've been able to do for most of the day is to wrap up in 3 blankets and lay on the couch. I have heard a lot about heat, but I haven't heard anyone speak about this. I don't ask very much about phenomena, but in this case, I am wondering if it would be useful for me to know why this is happening. Yeah, yeah. And so in the last 15 years of my life, unplug these things. In the last 15 years of my life, I have just been this radiant ball of fire. So sometimes I forget about the ways that the other ways that God manifests, and the other phenomena that comes. And Lauren, I used to have this experience often with my teacher, that when he would do deep healing work with me, and my teacher was so good to me because we would work together in meditation, we'd work together in prayer. Sometimes he would even do like really light and gentle body work with me. And my teacher, before he was a great meditation teacher, he was a gifted healer and offered body work sessions. But so there was countless times when I had this very experience that Laura is describing, where often I'd be with my teacher, I would really light up, and then afterwards my whole body, like maybe I'd drive home, or like when I'd get home, I'd become ice cold, and I'd actually start shaking, and I would just shiver uncontrollably. And sometimes this would happen in the middle of summer. And here in Colorado, summer doesn't get too hot, but there were definitely days when I would drive home and just be shaking and shivering and just like putting on layer after layer of like sometimes I'd like put on like a big puffy jacket, because I was so cold, and I'd have my winter hat, and I'd just be bundled up and shaking. And so there's this thing that happens within our egoic identity, that our ego, for most everyone, the ego feels full and it feels solid. And for some people, like they experience themselves like rocks, or they feel themselves like thick, heavy, and dense flesh. And within our flesh is held like eons and eons of just memories and thought forms and trauma. And, for some of us, it's ancestral trauma. For some of us, it's, y'all have to forgive me. I just keep going blank today. Sometimes it's birth trauma. Sometimes it's prenatal trauma. And when the light comes into these different layers of, let's say, old repressed trauma, and it begins to liberate them, often there can be shaking, there could be tears, there could be trembling. And sometimes there's this phenomena where we feel ice cold. And I had this for, like 20 years with my teacher. Whereas I would let go of something, and or I'll say that different. Something would let go from within me, just from the light. And there's just like my body was just like all of a sudden it just started letting go. And as I let go, I felt immediately like so much lighter, like lighter, like my weight dropped. But it was almost like, and again, this all sounds like pretty silly, but like there's these big seals in Northern California, and they can swim in that cold Pacific Ocean because they have like layers and layers of blubber, like literally. But as human beings, like in our fat is often where is stored old emotional pain and trauma. It's one of the reasons why, people really have a hard time with diets, is because like so much emotion is released like just out of our fat cells. And I have to be careful not to get too off topic here, and so, people just tend to keep eating again, just kind of like stuff it and help the ego feel solid, and it kind of helps the ego feel more protected. But as we're releasing things, sometimes it can feel almost like we're like shivering outside in the Arctic naked, just like, oh my God, I'm so cold, I'm so cold, because some level of armoring or denseness that was like padding our ego is emptying out of us. And it's very confusing, as a human being. If I said that like 15 times on the retreat, to be a being of light, but to incarnate into a body that has an animal nervous system, an animal mind, an animal emotional nature, and it's so guarded, and it builds layer after layer after layer of armoring all around it. And as that armoring is burnt off, often the felt sensation in the body, like a little bit after the fact, is this ice cold, just freezing feeling. And so it's kind of like a mix between like a psychological phenomena of trauma releasing, and the ego not having any padding around it, not having any heaviness or denseness around it, and the light just like shedding pounds and pounds and pounds of karma off our being. And so it's a strange phenomena, but it's one that I know quite well. And so sometimes with the integration process, and this is very important to know about integration. And again, it's similar to that thing I was speaking about with the diet is, with a diet, it's like, okay, I'm going to shed, I want to just quote, if any of you know, what's his name? White Goodman from Dodgeball. he wants to shed unwanted poundage for Beachbody season. So I hope some of you can smile a little bit. But, some of us, like, we want to shed some body weight. And as we do so, part of our ego starts to feel really vulnerable and shaky. And it starts to freak out a little bit. And so a lot of people, after they've done that diet, again, they go and they just eat and they fill back up again. And it helps their ego to feel like it's normal self. And so many humans like just work this balance of just trying to feel like their normal self. But us in this Sangha, we're choosing not to identify with that thing that we call the normal self, because that normal self is just a collection of old memories and pains and trauma and wounds. And I could even say within my own self, like there were times when I had immense anger and rage towards someone, and I would let it go, and I would shake it off, and I would shiver, and I would, step into this realm of purity and forgiveness. And it was so beautiful. And then the next day, my mind would remind me of the thing that they did that hurt me. And I would start thinking about it and ruminating about it. And then all of a sudden I was putting those layers back on my body. And there would be like almost like this egoic righteousness, like, yeah, like it wouldn't really say this, but it was like, I should hate them. They're no good, like this type of thing. And so our ego, it's always trying to return to its old homeostasis. And again, it's why so many people struggle so much with diets. It's why so many people struggle in the world of psychology with actually changing. It's one of the most frustrating things about this vocation that I am is working with people and to helping them to grow and change and evolve. And I'll see people transform and let go of something great, and then they come back next week with the exact same question, and I can see that they vomited it out in satsang or the Kundalini group or whatever. And then the next day, I'm just say something gross, they saw that pile of vomit and then they just ingested it again and just took on those same thought forms again. I was speaking with one of my friends in Germany, and he told me this beautiful story about I think he called it crab mentality. That crabs have this tribal thinking, and he was telling me, you have to warn all the vegans in the room to please close your ears, but like when people take a crab and they boil it in a pot of water, sometimes they'll boil like a bunch of crabs together. And one of those crabs will start to crawl out of the pot. And the other crabs, in the same tribe, will reach up and grab that crab and pull it down. And so when you have crabs in a pot, you don't have to keep the lid on, because the other crabs pull them back into the boiling water. So we all get boiled alive together. And see, sometimes like that's what tribal thinking is like. And, we have tribal thinking within us, and we have the individual version of tribal thinking within us, which is like the ego has this force of habit. Always return to homeostasis, that old habit. I quit smoking for 2 days. I smell someone's cigarette, and it's like, give me a smoke. Like I want to get back in the club with them. I want to get back in the club. And that's the voice of the ego. I'm feeling a little bit insecure, and I'm feeling, a little too light and a little bit too ripped open after retreat. Let's eat a whole bag of chips, maybe a bag of cookies. Let's put Netflix on. Someone give me a drink. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. Like, let's just go back to where we were, is what the ego is eternally doing. And it's not that the ego is bad or wrong. but it's simply a creature of habit. It's simply a creature of habit. And so I'm going to, in a sense, warn you all that after you've had a big retreat and profound experiences, just be, just have a subtle, or maybe just like an intentional sense of mindfulness. Okay, my ego might pull me back into something. And this is why it's so important to maintain awake awareness post-retreat. And when we've said goodbye to the teacher, goodbye to everyone in the Sangha, we want to stay rooted in our power. Rooted in our power. And, I was at this memorial today for my teacher. Everyone's just sharing these beautiful stories, and I was having like some reflections and sharing a little bit, and this old memory came up. Is like, my mind is normally so silent, but just so many memories have been flooded into my mind, like things that just like disappeared out of my consciousness have just come forward again, of me being, the student of this great master. And I would look at my teacher and I said, I want to be that. I want to be that. I want to live that truth. I want to live that truth. And I know that, other people in the song, that they didn't have, that same desire. They were there more to heal or to receive. But when I looked at my teacher, I just saw a future version of my own self. And it became so apparent within our relationship that he used to refer to me as his right hand. And I said that with a little bit of power right now, but when I had that memory of me, of him referring to me as his right hand, I feel so touched and so humbled and so honored. But it was something within me that said, I'm choosing to be this thing. And this is really what integration is about us choosing to be that which was realized, us choosing to be that which is realized. So many spiritual people are, again, I'm going to be rude here, lazy. They just go and they receive and they drink from the cup and they get high and they let the teacher do all the work. But if we truly are going to wake up, you must stand in the truth. You must become the truth. You must live and manifest the truth. And it all starts with you choosing to say yes, yes, to this higher movement within you. Like, we don't want to be like that lady who was on 142 retreats, and it was still a hot mess, We don't want to be that lady, She's going to be on her own journey. But this is a path that demands that you claim your power. You claim your power. And so we open to grace, we receive, we show up to the teachings, we show up to satsang in the groups or whatever it is at the retreats, and we receive, we receive, we receive. But I'm going to place this expectation on you all that you choose the truth, that you choose it. And I'll be, how should I say this? I'm going to be a little bit more forthright here. I've been very frustrated in the last 6 months with a number of individuals in the group who keep showing up, who I shower them with support, with compliments. I see the divine just pouring into them. And then they consistently choose their egoic identity again and again and again and again. And I must say, I'm finding it very frustrating. Very frustrating. Like, I want us all here to be spiritual warriors, not to just sit back and be on autopilot and just kind of, be, again, I'm going to be rude here, be like an energy vampire to the group and just be like, oh, I don't understand. I don't know. I can't do. Oh, my trauma. It's like, we've all had immense trauma. I've had ridiculous amounts of pain and suffering in my lifetime. At some point, we have to choose. At some point, like, we have to be done just listening to the story on replay again and again. I'm wanting us to grow. I'm wanting us to be bright lights. I'm wanting us to choose the truth, to step into our power and authority. And some of us have just become a little bit too, I'll just say, some of us bow before the habit of our ego instead of bowing before the strength of our nature. It's like, this world we live in, it's on fire. It's on fire. It needs people who are willing to stand in the truth, to embody the truth, to live the truth. It doesn't need more people to say, oh, I'm suffering, I'm suffering, I'm suffering. If you've been here long enough, we know how to work with suffering. We meet it with love. We meet it with love. We choose to let go of thoughts within our own consciousness that are toxic, thoughts that hold us back. And we choose something higher. And my God, if we can't do this, because there was a million times when I couldn't do it, I called upon grace, say, God, you come into me and you do this in me, because I'm not strong enough right now, or I'm too damn crazy right now, lost in my trauma and my confusion. I need you, God, to come into me. And so this is like a different type of prayer. When we find ourselves in the trauma vortex, or we find ourselves lost in habit, when we find ourselves a slave to addiction, we say, God, you come here now. You come here now. And you do this work in me. And if you find yourself burning up with light, and then like Lauren is sharing, and then freezing to death, I invite you to smile and say, okay, it's working. But I've noticed that a lot of people, not a lot, there's just a small group of folks who've just gotten stuck in their victim nature, who they start to do the healing work, and the healing work is uncomfortable. And they're like, I don't like this. This doesn't feel good. I'm doing something wrong. And it's like, no. Healing is hard work, and it's very uncomfortable. You are doing something right. You're doing something right. Continue breathing, having faith. Put some Journey on. What's the song? Journey? Don't stop believing. Like, put it on. Don't stop believing. Put it on. Turn it up. Turn it up. Plug into God. Plug into grace. Plug into faith. There's been many times, it's silly, it's cheesy. There's been many times that I've had a terrible, rotten, no good day. That's from some little kid's book. I can't even remember what it's from. But anyways, when you have a terrible, rotten, no good day, and I've put on Journey before, and it's just like, don't stop believing, and they're playing that guitar ballad, and it's just like, all right, okay. Okay. And for some of us, maybe we need to put on some Krishna Das, or we need to listen to satsang. Maybe this is the pep talk for you. We plug into grace. And my teacher told me this 1,000 times. Craig, if you make one step towards God, God will make 10 steps toward you. And sometimes you make one step towards God, and God will make 100 steps towards you. Sometimes it's 1,000. It's 1,000, but we need to make that one step. And that's really what integration is about, is us continuing to go forward. Continuing to go forward. And for some of us going forward, it might look like laying in bed and holding your heart and breathing warm love into your chest and saying, I'm going to lay here and just love my heart all day long. All day long. I'm not getting out of bed until I know love, until I manifest love, until I can look in the mirror and smile. And smile. And so, let's see what's here in the chat. Jan writes, Craig, sitting here quietly, our eyes closed, this wonderful practice of opening to the grace, opening to it in each of the chakras, seems easy and accessible. In your book, you have a chapter, Slowing Down. I wonder, would it be helpful to pause during the day when we notice we're gripping a spoon at dinner, getting frustrated with someone at work, feeling fearful and confused, full of cravings or whatever, and gently open to this grace, to relax, smile, and trust in her deepening this surrenderness. Yeah, that's pretty good. that's pretty good. I like that teaching. And sometimes it's just that we need to slow down, and I encourage all of you in the coming days, don't speed, don't rush back to work, don't rush into processing, old trauma with mom, dad, sister, brother, boyfriend, girlfriend, ex, whatever. Just give it a rest. Let yourself deepen in this peace and this truth. This is a big deal, what's here. And it needs some time. We humans have so much density within us. And this density, it needs some time to receive this light. It needs some time to know that it can trust in this peace. It needs some time to let go, and then for us to choose to follow the letting go, to follow it up with more truth. And so let's not, let go of the ego and then stuff it back up again with the old thought forms, the old emotions. Let's forgive and let go and move on and move forward and move forward. Yeah, Jennifer writes, I don't want to be a buster anymore. I want to grow and bloom into a doodles. Yeah, yeah. And I have to really smile because, gosh, poor Buster. A couple weeks ago, my little girl got Buster this big squishy mellow. It's like a little bed, for him. And he's been laying in it, and he's really been enjoying it. And then last night we got this puppy, and the puppy just snuggled up in Buster's bed. And Buster just sat like on the cold tile floor, just like staring, at that puppy in his bed, just looking so sad, And I told Buster, like, hey, Buster, that's a big bed. You can go snuggle. You can go snuggle with the new little puppy. And he was like, I'm not sure just yet. I'm not sure just yet. But even Buster's growing, even Buster's growing. He's scared. He's fearful. He's not sure about his new little brother. But, my wife had the two dogs playing tug of war today. And it was real sweet. And it was just, just for a couple seconds. Buster was having fun with the puppy, and then he went back and kind of pouted a little bit. And that's how our ego is. It tends to grow real slowly. But the more awake we are, the more power we have to choose the truth, to choose the truth. Okay. This is from May here. Apologies for the basic question. Okay. And please, the basic questions on the path are the best. So no apologies necessary. May is asking, where is the hara, the root, and the solar plexus? Okay, let's do it real quick. I want you to imagine the root being the pelvic floor, just like your bottom, the bottom of your bottom, like that's the root, and it's a ball. So each of the chakra centers is like a ball of light, and so then on top of that ball is the hara. So the hara is like right under the belly button, like a couple inches under the belly button, but then it extends up and it extends down, and chakras overlap a little bit. So let's say like you have the root here, and then the hara kind of intermixes in the upper part of the root, and then it comes up a little bit above the belly button, and then the solar plexus is the next chakra up, and it's where your rib cage comes together. So right under your heart, again, like that center as well, kind of overlaps into the hara. And so, we have the solar plexus chakra is the third, the hara is the second chakra, the root being the first. And then the heart, it's big, it overflows and encompasses a little bit of the, actually the heart chakra is massive. It takes up the whole chest, and it flows into the solar plexus and flows up into the throat. And so the more you open, the more all these chakra centers just bleed into each other. Maybe bleed's the wrong word, but they kind of merge into each other. And so it's a beautiful question. May, it's good to have some clarification. Okay, from Danny. Hi, Craig. How best to work with an intense solar plexus contraction, the related issues this creates in life? Thank you. Yeah, so the solar plexus often have to do with our personal power and the manifestation of our personal power. And so many of us who've been in houses where we've been abused or we've been dominated by, like a dominating father figure, or overwhelming mother, often will contract in the solar plexus, and there'll be this feeling of like almost like a contracted gripping. So instead of your power shining outward, your power all comes inward, and it's just like gripping onto itself, almost like it's imploding into itself in a state of fear. And again, almost always it's because you were around someone who dominated you. And so like with me, I grew up with a really domineering father, and he just made me terrified of any authority figure, maybe terrified of anyone with power, and it made me terrified of power itself. And so I had all this power, but it was just repressed, would be a good word for it. And when we open in the solar plexus, like one of the best ways to open to it is physically, through physical exercise, through doing things that are really hard and having success in them. And so whether it's working out, whether it's martial arts, whether it's climbing mountains, whether it's like broadcasting your voice, like if you can be in any kind of group where you get to share, you get to express, where you embody your power and your truth. And for a lot of us, like when we open in these lower centers, we have to go through a healthy range of ego development with it. And because of this, often we need to play with expressing our power egoically first before we, like automatically just go into our spiritual gift. And so it's important for you to have some level of success where you can be empowered and where you can win, where you can get some wins in life. A while ago, just because I was, really training intensely with jujitsu and martial arts, I used to watch this show. Gosh, I can't remember what it's called. It's a UFC show, and it's not going to be a show that's appropriate for everyone to watch. But Danny, you might like this. It's where people go on the show and they like train together. They all like live in a house together and they train together and they fight each other. And like everyone on the show, all of them are attempting to get in touch with their power and to get some wins and to, in a sense, it's kind of like a tournament. It's like a show that's a tournament where they're all living together and they're trying to be the best one on the show. I want to call it Contender Series, but that's not what it's called. It's called something else. But my friend Nico, she was on this show, and eventually she became the world champion. And my friend Nico, she's this beautiful Navajo woman. So she grew up, in a culture that's been deeply repressed. And so for her to, come to the gym, step into the octagon, begin to train in martial arts and train in wrestling and jujitsu and Muay Thai, kickboxing, and then to really like express her power, to talk about her toughness and how she's, tough and strong and fight, and, even telling some people, like telling them off and this and that. Like for a lot of us, when we are opening and healing and beginning to embody our solar plexus chakra, we have to go through some level of hero's journey that's physical, that's expressive, that we get to dominate. And it doesn't have to be anything violent. It could be us winning at water polo or bike racing, or even just winning or succeeding in business, or having some wins at work. But for the solar plexus chakra really to open, we have to go through the healthy stages of ego development. And then after we've kind of stood in our egoic power and authority, then eventually we can let go of that and more fully invite the divine to begin to flow through us and to begin to show us and manifest our unique spiritual gift in this world. Often spiritual people try to do this bypass where we are completely disempowered, and then we try to go like automatically into the most enlightened expression of our spiritual authority. And that's not going to happen. Like we need, this is an evolutionary world and we can't skip evolutionary steps. And some of the evolutionary steps in the solar plexus might be you speaking up for yourself and actually arguing, and getting good at arguing and like having fun with arguing and like winning at arguments. And just to share a little bit, like with my journey, me being an Enneagram type 9, like the shadow side of the 9 is avoid confrontation at all costs. And so I would let people yell at me, take advantage of me, speak down to me, belittle me, and I would just shut up and take it. And I would walk away and then just be like silently angry by myself. And at some point, I can remember like when my solar plexus chakra first started to open, it was not a sweet, serene, beautiful manifestation of divinity. When it first started to open, I began telling people to I began to run my mouth, is the way I'll put it. YouTube doesn't like it when I curse, but I began to speak up and tell them where to stick it. And a lot of spiritual people are like, oh no, that's not spiritual. I can't do that. You know what is spiritual is development and growth. That's spiritual. And we have to acknowledge the fact that we are first animals. And then secondly, we are human. And then thirdly, we are divine. And while most of us would like to just start with our divine and evolve from there, we have this body that is an animal body, and it has a big fat animal ego in it, and it has a human nature in it. And we have to evolve through those layers before we can fully express our divinity. So Danny, that's a beautiful question. And you know, for a lot of us, it just looks like us getting our voice and actually defending ourselves. And sometimes people, you know, if they travel a little bit too quickly on the spiritual path, they might use spiritual teachings. They're like, oh, there's no self here, so it doesn't matter if someone takes advantage of me, or like, who am I to be concerned about myself or life, or who am I to have an opinion? And, you know, we kind of like float in this vague, you know, wet noodle spiritual world. And if we play those games, which a lot of spiritual people do, we'll just be stuck, and our solar plexus will be just stuck, like gripping. And so, you know, sometimes people, even like, I can remember when I was young too, I thought self-love, like loving oneself, is like, why do I want to do that? That's actually really selfish, and that could be narcissistic, and I just want to be awake, so I'm not going to worry about self-love. I'm just going to keep meditating. And then I realized that doesn't work. And I walked around like on the spiritual path with self-hatred. And I saw, oh, self-hatred, that's not loving. That's not a manifestation of awake consciousness. That's not in any way good for humanity, for Craig to hate himself and try to get rid of himself. But I gave it a good run. I gave it a good run. And at some point I failed so miserably at it. I realized, okay, like, what if I love myself? How about I try this approach? And so within our solar plexus, like, sometimes the most awakened thing we can do in our solar plexus is love ourselves enough to speak our truth, or to share our, and again, I'm saying speak our truth. What we're really doing is sometimes we need to share our egoic ideals and opinions to the rest of the world. And after we get that off our chest for a while, then we really need to come into that. Then we more easily, more readily come into the truth, which is not our egoic truth. But there's this thing that happens on the path, that you cannot let go of something until you own it first. And that's just a something within like the psychological wiring of our body. Very hard to let go of anything unless you own it first. But you own it, you validate it, and then you let it go. And I can tell you this just as a spiritual being, that when I was going through this stage of development, and you know, my solar plexus chakra started to come online, and I was, you know, telling everyone off and telling them where to stick it and this and that, I knew that this wasn't the highest truth, but I also knew, like, I kind of had to go through this stage of development. I didn't kind of have to. I absolutely had to, because I had bypassed it for decades of my life. You know, like at least the first 20 years of my life, I just shut up and took everything that everyone gave to me. I didn't raise a peep, and that just doesn't work. That just doesn't work. And so sometimes we have to embody our ego before we release it. Before we release it. Now, please, no one take that as a justification to be a jerk on the path. we need to have some level of honesty and discernment about what our psyche actually needs to grow and develop. And that's different than indulging it. And, I'm going to quote Aaron, from the group here. And when we were at the first Kripalu retreat, someone asked me a similar question and I gave this teaching. And then afterwards, Aaron said, like sometimes you need to like knock the door off its hinges, and just like let everything come out, before you can like fully stand in the truth. And so there's a beautiful teaching that Aaron shared. So thank you, Aaron, for that. Yeah. Yeah, I always remember that as a real truth to it. Like sometimes when we're working with the chakras opening, kind of just got to like knock all the doors down within them. And what comes out will probably be very messy, very messy. And look, we're in a world with mud. And so we have to get comfortable being a little bit muddy. We have to get comfortable being a little bit muddy. The mud, it's just like, it's a stage of development. We need to go through it. But too many spiritual people have a strong, controlling superego. That's like, no, I can't be big. I can't be loud. I can't make a noise. And then they stagnate their own growth. And really that voice of like, I can't be big or I shouldn't be big, being big and loud isn't peaceful. That's not coming from the truth. That's coming from the habit of fear. It's coming from the habit of fear. Fear works to keep us small. Like from a biological perspective, with fear, the thought is if I'm small, I won't be seen and I won't be eaten. And I certainly had that as a child. It's like, I want to make myself small. I'm going to hide. I'm not going to make a peep. Therefore, my father will not crush me. And it's a survival thing. It's a survival thing as a kid. But when I grew up, my teacher said, I need you to be big, Craig. I need you to take up space. I need to be able to hear your voice. And when my voice first came online, I can say it was really timid and shy. And I used to speak like I was going through puberty or something. Like when I first opened my mouth, it was like, that went on for years where I'm talking like I was going through puberty, getting my voice. And, like at 26 years old, I was still going through puberty, getting my voice. And then when my voice started to come online, my voice began to curse like a sailor. And, like that was just part of something that needed to move through me too. Because if you just feel into the energy, like when people are cussing, it's just like, there's a lot of power. When you say, screw this and screw that, and rah, 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 like there's a lot of power. But then eventually, as you let the crassness burn itself off, you're just left with power. You're just left with power. Okay. Let's see. David Morris writes, needing approval/praise for my performance is something I have seen in myself. I'm wondering what a healthy way that need is integrated. Yeah. When we are someone who this is actually like my version of like the solar plexus being imploded was me shutting up and not speaking. For other people, there can be a fear in the solar plexus and the hara, and through this insecurity there begins this compulsion to speak or to share all the time. And so it's the same thing, it's just flipped. So it's through the willingness David, to hear one's voice, to hear one's truth, to be able to look in the mirror and see your spiritual authority and your spiritual brilliance, to see it and to love it. That what you'll find is that you'll probably speak less outwardly. And by speaking less outwardly, I mean speaking in a way where you're seeking other people's approval. And so sometimes we speak and we speak and we speak and we share. Sometimes like this can manifest in social media where we're just sharing and posting, and like you see people like on Instagram, they're always like posting their big vacations and their trips and like every meal they had, and it's like, what the hell are you doing? Like, we don't care what you had for dinner, like, and we don't really care you're on vacation. I mean, maybe it's cool, but like people who are just like sharing and sharing and sharing in the Instagram world, and they're like wanting likes, wanting approval, and that type of thing. If that person could just look in the mirror and see their beauty, see their goodness. And sometimes we have to first see, oh my God, there's tremendous insecurity here. And it's manifesting in compulsive speaking and wanting for approval. And if we can see that child inside who's compulsively talking, and hold him and love him and say, hey, I see you and I love you, and to tenderly be with him in meditation. And if you love him so completely and fully, he actually becomes silent. And from his silence just radiates this innocence and this purity that you know all the time. That you know. And so the teaching that often I share on this is, I call it falling in love with yourself. Falling in love with yourself. You falling in love with you. You falling in love with you. And it's falling in love with your insecure parts, falling in love with the ugly parts, falling in love with the rageful, venomous parts, and of course, falling in love with your highest spiritual brilliance and beauty and divinity, and all this Kundalini Shakti that's flowing through you. You fall in love with every aspect of you being. Yeah. Okay. I want to wrap it up, but I see Taylor here, so let's hear from Taylor.
Yeah, I just have a quick share. So Craig, when you were talking about your frustration with some of the tendencies in the group and identifying with the difficulties instead of the divinity, something that really came forward really strongly for me was this kind of embracing of difficulty as it's like reveling in it, like riding a big wave, or like, oh, like whoa,
Yeah.
and really like dancing with it almost, or really enjoying it, as
Yeah.
strange as that sounds. And
Yeah. No, that's Tantra. That's Tantra. Yeah.
I remember some of the early sessions with you where I would just like show up and cry for like from start to end pretty much.
Yeah.
And 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 there was a strange thing where at the same time there was something enjoying it. There was something that was like, this is awesome, like this is powerful, this is
Yeah.
so wild that this could be happening like this.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're not speaking about indulging it. You're speaking about like the Tantra of like truly enjoying it, like sipping it in and drinking it in. Is that right?
Yeah, and yeah, I think it's actually the enjoyment of the transformational process itself.
Yeah. And to me, like Taylor, that's why I love you so much, is because like you grow at such a speed. It just amazes me. It just amazes me. And the folks that I've had frustration with, it's the ones who've been greatly supported and who choose to indulge. And it's just like, and it's after years and years and years. It's like in the beginning, of course we can indulge, and of course we could roll around in the mud, and of course we can say, I don't know, and I don't understand, and this and that. And that is absolutely welcome. Like, I have great patience for that. It's, folks, when they stick around for years and they just keep choosing, like, they see the hole and they complain about the hole, but they still walk to it and just keep falling in it and keep falling in it and keep falling in it. And it's like, okay, at what point are we going to choose this higher truth? At what
Yeah.
point? And that's one thing that is one of the reasons I have such respect for you, is because you have gone to such depths, like amazing depths of pain and of suffering, and choose to open and open and open, even though it's been unbelievably hard and difficult. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's just something about this quality that was like I couldn't have done it without this quality, without
Yeah.
this quality of like enjoying the warriorship of it, like almost
Yeah.
like a warrior on a battlefield, like in those action sequences where the hero is just kind of on fire
Yeah.
and just spinning around. It's
Yeah.
almost like, wow, like that's something, that's a capacity within me,
Yeah.
within all of us. And
Yeah.
I don't know how in the heck I could have uh, made it through some of these things without that.
Yeah. 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 I mean, it's a beautiful thing. And one of the other things too is, like, as a support person, when you see that quality in an individual, and when they don't choose it, it's like, oh, come on, choose it. It's right there. It's right there. It's right there. And then sometimes they do choose it, and then they immediately throw it away or discredit it. And it's tough stuff. And I know, like the work of human transformation, I mean, it's long, arduous work. It requires great patience, great patience, and great willingness. And so, yeah, thank you, Taylor, and thank you so much for, like, all the work you've been doing with the inquiry group and everything. And I've just gotten so much great feedback from it. I'm just so happy with what you and Don are doing. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, thanks. It's been real fun.
Yeah. 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 Good to have you.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And thanks for speaking up about Katie. And that's it's helpful, because sometimes I'm a little too loose with my tongue, and I need people to straighten me out every now and then. So I appreciate it. I
Yeah.
appreciate it, Taylor. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, everyone, it's been a beautiful retreat, and beautiful weekend, beautiful evening. I am going to say this, that uh, there's a small chance that I'll be missing Wednesday's Kundalini group and meditation. I might have to travel. Um, and so just look on Facebook. Everything's on right now. And if you look on Facebook the day of, if I do cancel, I'll post it there, just so everyone knows. Just so everyone knows. But I do my best, to just keep showing up and being here. And so much love to each of you, and my gosh, so much respect, for your willingness to be here, to show up, to sit in this fire and this light, and to continue to open. So great love and respect to each of you. Good night, everyone. Good to be with you.